Good morning from Amsterdam. I know this is a crazy weird time for me to upload. I know I'm a day behind, several days behind on the vlog edits, but we got some very big news this morning. Pokémon GO was just updated to version 0.71.0, and yes, it does include some new information about Generation 3 in Pokémon GO, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let me just quickly go through and show you what's actually changed in the app. You can see raid timers are bigger. Raid bosses actually show as the Pokemon and not as silhouettes. The sprites, the look for incubators has been updated, so the infinite incubator now has an infinity symbol on it. The regular incubator looks a little different. And in the APK, there's now new code for a super incubator, which we know will hatch eggs faster than a normal incubator. And it's not clear whether this super incubator is going to be given to you as a reward or if it's going to be purchasable through the in-game shop. But there it is, and it will hatch eggs faster than a regular incubator. And now one amazing addition is you can now search by moves using the @ symbol. So if you type in @ and then add in Firespin, a move name, it'll show you all your Pokemon that know Firespin. Earthquake. That's not how you spell earthquake. Earthquake. All my Pokemon that know Earthquake. So you can search by moves now, which is going to be very helpful when you're searching for the right counters for a raid boss or for a gym battle. That's now an option. And then there was one small change made to the way that shiny Pokemon sparkle. You can see a lot more sparkles here on Gyarados, and then my shiny Pikachu never really had a ton of sparkles. But now that this code has been updated, it sparkles a lot more. Just like the shiny Gyarados does. Unclear whether or not those sparkle changes are going to affect wild shiny Pokemon, if you'll be able to see sparkles before you encounter them or anything like that, but for now, more sparkles on the shinies. And that's about it for the concrete, visible, in-app changes, at least so far. If anything else gets discovered, I'll let you guys know, but that's mostly it for the visible changes. Now moving on to the Silph Road's APK teardown, there are a lot of things that were found within the game's code in this update. First, bug fixes, an error system rework, a cooldown for raid notifications, some memory fixes, so you should see a slight improvement in performance in some areas of the game. Not necessarily everything has been fixed, but a little bit of stuff should be better. There have been some updates surrounding exclusive raids in the game code, though according to Dromps, it seems like this is updating the existing raid code to support the new types of raids, aka exclusive raids. And then there's also been some tweaks to the raid system code, particularly regarding the count of users in a lobby, raid timers, and spawn timer. Like we saw, the timer looks a little bit different. And then something new referred to as the default raid item rewards that may be a placeholder, according to Dromps. It's not entirely clear whether any of these changes in the game's code will apply to current raids or if they're just in preparation for exclusive raids, but we'll find out probably at the end of the month, beginning of September maybe, when those exclusive raids start rolling out with Mewtwo. A new label appeared in the game's code called Metamon ID, and Metamon is Ditto's name in Japanese, so possibly getting prepared for some changes to the way Ditto works, maybe some kind of preparation for the next bit of news, Gen 3. Alright. So this is the big one. This is the headline. Gen 3 names were found in the code. IDs and names for 135 new Pokemon, that's all of Generation 3, have been added to the game's code. And with those 135 new Pokemon, there are also 73 new Pokemon families, or new types of candy, essentially, from Trico all the way to Deoxys, so that covers all of Gen 3. Now, before we get too excited, remember that our first signs of Gen 2 appeared months, like 3 months, in the game's code before Gen 2 actually launched. And while we did get baby Pokemon about a month after that initial tease at Gen 2, there are only 2 new baby Pokemon in Gen 3. You have Azurill and Wynot, which are the pre-evolutions of Marill and Wobbuffet, and I really hope we don't get like an early baby release again. I'd rather just see all of Gen 3 at once. But now keep in mind, we also do not have Smeargle or Delibird, 2 remaining Pokemon from Gen 2 that are not available, so I expect to see Smeargle and Delibird released before Gen 3. Now here's what I'm thinking, timeline-wise. Before Gen 3, I've always felt that we need a battle system update a rework of some sort to introduce abilities to the game, because Gen 3 abilities were introduced and a lot of Pokemon really rely on their abilities. Slacking is going to be totally broken. It's going to have the highest CP, the highest stat total, but in the main series games it was offset by an ability that allowed it to only attack every other turn. Without that ability, Slacking is going to be super overpowered. Now we did see with Mewtwo, Niantic did just give it a nerf. They just gave it a flat 10%. Okay, cool. My camera stopped recording without telling me, and I went on for another 10 minutes after that. So anyway, we just saw Mewtwo. God, let me see if I can pick up and remember everything that I said after this thing stopped recording. We just saw Mewtwo get a flat 10% nerf. They just nerfed its stats. It doesn't follow the stat formula like every other Pokemon, and that was their way of balancing Mewtwo for the current Pokemon GO metagame. And to be honest, I don't really think it needed it. Sure, it would have come in above 4,000 CP maxed out, but you can't leave it in gyms. It's going to be hard to get. I don't understand why Mewtwo had to get this nerf. What is that? So knowing that Niantic is willing to just apply these nerfs, these individual nerfs to Pokemon, like they did with Mewtwo, they could do something similar to Slacking and just cut down its stats so that it's not as broken, so that it's not as overpowered. But I feel like that doesn't do justice to the main series games, to the Pokemon's personality, which we know is something that they attempted to preserve, at least in some Pokemon. That's the reason that Abra has a 99% flee rate, because in the main series games, the only move it knew was Teleport, and once it used Teleport in a wild battle, it would teleport away from the battle. So to just give Slacking a nerf in its CP, I think would be a total cop-out, and we would need abilities ahead of Gen 3, or at least along with Gen 3, in order to preserve some of these Pokemon's personalities. There are other Pokemon in Gen 3 who rely on their abilities as well. There's Shedinja, a Pokemon with 1 HP, but it has an ability, Wonder Guard, which allows it to only take damage from super effective attacks. So if a move doesn't deal super effective damage to Shedinja, it doesn't take any damage at all. Now, without that ability, in Pokemon GO, it's a Pokemon with 1 HP, and it's going to faint immediately upon entering any battle. So again, Shedinja needs Wonder Guard in order to work. There's also Cast Form, which changes types. It changes forms based on the weather. Weather, again, is another thing that we would probably need in the battle system in order to keep Cast Form true to its roots. So there are a lot of Pokemon who rely on their abilities in Gen 3, and without introducing abilities and expanded effects to the battle system in Pokemon GO, Gen 3 won't work exactly as it was supposed to. So with that said, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we get Smeargle and Delibird ahead of Gen 2, and with Smeargle and Delibird, hopefully, this is just like ideal situation for me. Hopefully a battle system rework that includes expanded effects for moves, because Delibird has a move called Present, where it gives the enemy a present. It either explodes to deal damage, or heals that Pokemon, which is something that we've never seen before in Pokemon GO. Smeargle has a move called Sketch, which permanently copies the last move used by the opponent. While that one doesn't necessarily require an updated battle system, it would kind of go hand in hand with it to add these new effects to the game. They're doing some kind of construction work around here. So in my mind, ideally what we see is the next big quarterly update for Pokemon GO is a battle system rework. I'm hopeful. There are no hints that that's going to come at all. This is just me being hopeful, and it's what I want personally. So we know that Niantic is on a now quarterly update schedule. Our first major quarterly update of the year was Gen 2 in February. We got the gym system rework and raids in June. That was the second quarter of the year. We're now moving into September, which is the last month of the third quarter of the year. So we should see one major update before the end of September. I don't think it's going to be Gen 3. I really think it's something else. Hopefully a battle system rework, which of course we haven't seen any hints at that, and now we're seeing hints at Gen 3. But then we have the fourth quarter of the year, which is where I would expect Gen 3 if things go according to my ideal timeline. Now in terms of not seeing any hints and now seeing these hints of Gen 3, Niantic knows that we tear down these APKs every time they come out. Niantic knows that we're going to find this information and that we are going to share it, that the Silph Road's going to share it, that this information is going to get out. So obviously there's some element here of them wanting to create hype around Gen 3. They saw it happen last year with Gen 2 when we started getting excited about that 3 months ahead of its actual launch. So it's a hype move, definitely, to put these names in the game. There's obviously no reason for them to be there yet. Gen 3 is nowhere near complete in the game's code. They're just giving us this first hint because they want us to know it's coming. But with that said, I know that Niantic is also trying to move away from catching new Pokemon as the core loop of the game. And the core loop essentially means the main thing that keeps you interested and keeps you playing the game. At this point, for a lot of people, they've completed the Pokedex, and raids are sort of the end game content at this point. People are just trying to get stronger Pokemon, better IVs, with ideal movesets, using their TMs, stockpiling rare candies for legendary Pokemon, and also in preparation for Gen 3, which is possibly why we saw the nerf to rare candies as raid rewards, because Niantic doesn't want you to have hundreds of candies heading into Gen 3. But that said, if they're moving away from new Pokemon as the core loop, it's not as important that you'll be able to complete the Gen 3 Pokedex quickly, because there should be other content keeping you interested in the game. Right now it's kind of raids. Raids have actually finally given me a reason to power up a lot of my Pokemon, to max them out, or at least power them up to final breakpoints, because before raids, when it was just gym battles, you could easily beat any gym with level 20 Pokemon. You really didn't need to spend the resources to max them out. But with raids, you definitely need that. You need the strongest Pokemon possible in order to take down raids, especially if you have smaller groups. Thank you. So it is sort of endgame content. It gives you a reason to power things up. It gives you something to do other than just catch new Pokemon, which, again, from the very beginning, even before Gen 2 launched, that was something that I was aware of and that I was vocal about, is that adding new Pokemon is exciting until you catch all those new Pokemon, at which point you need some actual game content keeping you interested in the game. So I'm hoping that's what we get with the battle system rework, and that's something that would need to happen ahead of PvP, because PvP in the current battle system would be insufferable. It would be terrible. Tapping and swiping, trying to dodge someone's attacks. We already have dodge glitches when you're just battling against the server, but imagine if you had to send that information from your phone to the server, to someone else's phone, to the server, back to your phone to find out if you dodged. There would be horrible lag and glitches. It just doesn't work with the current system. So again, I don't have any reason specifically to believe that the updated battle system is going to be the next content update, the next major update. That's just me being hopeful. An updated battle system with abilities with expanded effects for moves, status effects, would give us a whole new system to play around in. New Pokemon would rise to the top, new strategies would come out for battles, and that's something I think we need desperately ahead of PvP especially. PvP is something that's going to keep people interested for a long time. So if we had PvP, if we had an updated battle system, that could effectively shift the core loop away from catch all the new Pokemon to catch the Pokemon that I need and create the perfect team for this new battle system. If you have PvP, the core loop is essentially get the right Pokemon, build your team. Something that I feel has really been missing from Pokemon Go in relation to the main series games is that team building aspect. There's no reason to really try to pick your right team, because you have access to your whole 1,000 box full of Pokemon. They only have 2 moves each. You just choose the best counters for whatever raid boss you're battling, for whatever gym you're battling, and that's it. There's nothing that you need to do beyond that. So at this point, I'm sort of just rambling with speculation, but the last thing I want to say is Gen 3, the names of these Pokemon are in the game code. That's it. We still don't have sound effects, we don't have move information, new moves possibly with Gen 3's launch. So again, this is a bit of a hype move from Niantic, knowing that we're going to talk about it. Gen 3 is coming, but there's no indication as to when. It could be next month, it could be the end of the year. But in the meantime, I know a lot of you guys aren't familiar with Gen 3. Maybe you didn't play the main series Pokemon games or didn't keep up all the way through Gen 3. So what I want to do when I get back home to California, to LA, to Long Beach, is I want to start streaming a Gen 3 game, probably Emerald version, once a week, maybe on weekends for an hour or two, and just kind of hang out. We'll play through Gen 3 together, and I can kind of go through and introduce everyone to Gen 3 Pokemon, to new mechanics in Gen 3, like abilities, some of the special Pokemon. We can just, maybe I look like Casey Neistat. we can just go through and get everyone familiar with Gen 3 ahead of its launch, again, which could be next month or could be at the end of the year. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in learning about Gen 3, I'll definitely make some more announcements as that gets closer. Obviously, I can't start that until I get home, but I think it would be something fun to do, especially because I've been wanting to play a main series Pokemon game for a while now, to kind of just get a taste of all those mechanics that I'm missing out on here in Pokemon Go. Now, drop a comment down below, let me know how you feel about this. When are you expecting Gen 3? And of course, now that the noise is gone, I've lost my train of thought and don't know how I was going to finish the video. So if you're excited, just leave a comment, let me know. Let me know what you think the next major update to the game is going to be. Is it Gen 3? Is it a battle system update? Is it something else entirely that I haven't thought of? And then, of course, keep in mind that this does not mean Gen 3 is coming soon. It just means Gen 3 is coming eventually. So stay tuned. I am going to go back immediately after finishing this video to editing the previous video that I was working on, which is pretty exciting, I have to say. It's a good video. So stay tuned for that. That'll get uploaded at my regular time, 11 a.m. Pacific time. And I'm sorry it's the middle of the night, but I hope you're excited for all this update news in Pokemon Go, and I will see you very soon for that other thing that I'm doing. Bye.